Thank you for welcoming me. I'd like to thank Peter and Joe in particular for allowing me to speak with you this evening a little bit about our educational program for the Franciscan Friars of the province of St. Barbara. First, a description of the school. Second, a little reflection on the gospel with some examples. And lastly, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the students. So we'll keep it kind of short, I hope. First of all, the school. The Franciscan School of Theology is a graduate school of theology, so everyone entering has a collegiate education already. It's located in Oceanside, California, at Old Mission, San Luis Rey. That's one of the missions that was founded by Friar Francisco de la Suin in 1798, and it's about 39 miles north of San Diego. It's owned and operated by the Franciscan Friars of the province of St. Barbara. That's, in lay terms, the parent company of the Franciscan Renewal Center, of St. Anthony's Foundation in San Francisco, of 12 parishes, 5 retreat centers, and we're the theology school that trains the friars and lay people together that work in many of these places. We probably trained 85–95% of the friars since 1968, and many of the friars who have come to serve here at the Casa. So, as Peter mentioned at the beginning, although I'm not sure this could go either way, I did have him in school. And I was his formation director, but that keeps me up at night, so I... Reformation theology. We train religious and laity for mission and work in church and society. We train them together because we believe that's the church. Brothers and sisters together. We're at both a seminary and a theology school, but both of those dimensions are very important for us. We're the only graduate school of theology in the English-speaking world that delivers the Franciscan spiritual, social, and theological tradition of Francis and Clare of Assisi. We're the only one left, if you like. And we have a particular pedagogy and approach that I'll go into in a minute. We have a very pastoral and distinctive tradition which you're exposed to here at the Casa and carry in your own selves. That's why you're here. You've been exposed to it, so you kind of know what we're already about. 3 years ago, we moved to Old Mission San Luis Rey and affiliated, we did not merge, we affiliated with the University of San Diego, one of the best and well-known national Catholic universities on the West Coast. It's a premier institution. It has graduate schools in business, history, leadership, and peace studies. And what we wanted to do was to enable our students to take professional graduate work in these areas, in microfinances, or in global poverty, or in leadership, or in secondary education, fold them into our theological curriculum so that we in the 21st century could educate friars and lay people in a better way to serve the people of God. It's a wonderful affiliation and they've been great. Let me say something about the philosophy of the school. There's a phrase in the Psalms that our Franciscan tradition picks up. This is in all of the masters of our teachers, Bonaventure and Scotus and elsewhere, Francis and Clare of Assisi. And it picks up the phrase in Psalm 130. Look, hear, O Israel. Your God is full of mercy. His redemption is plenteous. And what we want to do is we want to send out people into the world that can preach a God of mercy and plenteous redemption. It's a simple and as difficult as that. This past week, I was privileged to go to the canonization of Junipero Serra, so I just got back from Washington, D.C., and there were, 28,000 other people there. Well, I had a special ticket, so I wasn't too far removed, and we had 2 friars up on the altar with the Pope, and it was a wonderful and glorious occasion. I just want to tell you a few stories that probably didn't make the paper. One of the first things, we went along, we had the opening song as we did this evening, and my ears perked up at the first reading. I've never seen anything like that before, because the first reading at the papal mass, and I've been to a lot of papal masses and a lot of celebrations in Rome, and I can tell you this was entirely unusual. The first reading was read by a developmentally challenged woman. And she did a superb job, a wonderful job, but it spoke volumes, because that type of thing just doesn't happen in those occasions. But there it was. It says volumes about who the Pope is and the mission that he's about. After he gave his address to Congress, he made the decision to visit the staff of Congress on the front portico of the Capitol. So he's out there visiting them, and as he leaves them, he says, spontaneously, he says, "Now, I have one request of you. I want you to pray for me." And then he stopped, and he says, "But let's face it, many of you probably don't even believe in God. Well, wish me well." What a beautiful touch that includes everyone, believers and unbelievers, in a solidarity of human help. Right after that, he went over to see the Little Sisters of the Poor, and the news media played it as if it was a baptism of the litigation they're involved in over Obamacare. It's not that at all. Not at all. He went to the Little Sisters of the Poor because the Little Sisters of the Poor are dedicated to care for the elderly. Again, as simple as that. He's calling attention to something. In New York, he went to Harlem and visited an educational institution there. And he met there in small groups with the day laborers who gave him a soccer ball and a hard hat and this sort of thing. Again, just a beautiful touch. The friar, one of our friars at the canonization, was privileged to be on the altar and went back into the place where the bishops rest. And they were told to go into a room in another part of the building and vest by themselves. So they're vesting there, the 2 of them are vesting. And lo and behold, walking into the room is the Secretary of State, the Cardinal Secretary of State, the second in command, Cardinal Parolin. They were telling me about this, and I said, well, I'll tell you, that doesn't happen unless it's directed. So he sat down with them and said, I think I'll vest with you. Who are you? What are you about? And then after the service, they met the Pope personally, and I asked one of my good friends who was there, and I said, well, what was he like? He said, I'll tell you. He looked me, eyeball to eyeball, and said, hi, how are you? And I had a little conversation with him. It's that personal contact. But I want to say in all of these little stories about him, and we could multiply it forever, he's not simply talking only about the poor, the elderly, the undereducated, the homeless. He went to places, as he invited all the members of Catholic Charities to come and hear the address to Congress. He went to all those places in order to affirm what people like yourselves do. He went to those places to affirm the priests, the religious, the laity, the friends, the believers and unbelievers, all of those people who reach out and help others. It's not simply about what the papers play. It's about the formation of human community through acts of generosity. It's as simple as that. So I hope you can receive the message which he wants to give, which is an affirmation of yourselves and what you do with your lives. I know plenty about the Franciscan Renewal Center. I know many people here. I know the generosity in your hearts. And we friars and the people whom you serve have been very grateful for that. We need to take it to heart. As a teacher, I'd say, what does it mean? Simple. God is present in every single human being, built in God's image. They deserve the dignity and respect that goes with that. One thing. A second thing, God is at work in every human being, no matter what their capacity is, strong or weak, elderly or young, little or big, wealthy or not wealthy. God is at work in you, longing to help others, to grant them their dignity. And it's that community created by the grace of God that we see played out this whole week. We note in the gospel the apostles who want to contain God say, well, that man is casting out demons. Well, first of all, you have to think of the person who's receiving the ministry. Not just the guy casting it out or the woman casting it out. The one receiving. This person has cast out a demon in Jesus' name. And the apostles say, it can't happen. We didn't do it. And the Lord says, no. God is at work in every human being, someone who proclaims my name, in the relationships between people. And then it says, anyone who gives you a cup of cold water because you belong to me. Now that anyone who gives a cup of cold water may be a believer or an unbeliever. But the fact that they give a cup of cold water means they receive their reward. And in biblical language, that's a great reward. Come, receive the reward promised you from the foundation of the world, life. The gospel makes a distinction between those who act in the name of Christ and those who act in the name of Christ and belong to Christ. And that's us. We not only act in the name of Christ and we receive from others who give to us, but we belong to Christ. We follow him. We are his disciples. What it means to be church is to engage in these very sometimes simple, very sometimes great. An exorcism is a big distance from a cup of water. Sometimes great, sometimes small. An act of generosity, and all of those acts of generosity reflect a God of great goodness. Our purpose at the school is to train people in this vision. This is what we want to do. We want to send people into the world to proclaim the plenteous redemption of the Lord and God's action all over the place, and to rejoice in it. I'll tell you about a few. You know Martin Ibarra. He works in Guaymas, a Franciscan friar, a priest, ordained 5-6 years ago, trained at our school, works down there, very poor. I think he's preached here. We have another young woman, Ariana Quintara, who has a degree in psychology, a counseling degree, and wanted to combine it with her faith so she could go out and take care in a faith-based way of autistic children. We have another, Tony Lugano, who has engaged in prison work. And he wanted to combine his pastoral work there with his theological education so he can practice what they call restorative justice or community action. We have a Native American with us, Philip Pope, who wants to return after he's ordained a priest to the Apache reservation right up here in White River that you yourselves have been so generous with. We have another young woman, Brianna Marin, who now teaches in high school, passing on the faith. She's in charge of training all the chaplains in a very large high school in the Bay Area. Wonderful work. We have another, Angela Zalke, who's has her master's in family counseling and decided she wanted to do faith-based work, got to the school, is now studying Greek, Hebrew, and German, so she can go on to doctoral studies to pass this on at the university level. We just ordained Ryan Thornton, who's spoken here. I think some of you may know him. He's gone away to Paris. Another generation of friars being trained technically, more, I suppose, like myself, in order to educate friars and laity in the plenteous redemption of God, a very distinctive pastoral tradition. None of these people can do it without your help. The tuition is $17,200. The cost of the education is $40,000. Where does it come from? It comes from generous people, large, small, anything in between. It comes from prayer. It comes from this network of generosity to which we all belong. 80% of our students are on financial aid. The average financial aid is 60%. Our students who go out and spread the message of plenteous redemption, clearly entering into nonprofits, parishes, high schools, care for the poor, hospitals, touch people you know. They touch them in their sadness. They touch them in the sacraments. They touch them in their joy. They touch them in their suffering. And they're doing it all over the Western United States. We want to educate people in the plenteous redemption of the Lord and allow them to enjoy the wonderful benefits of belonging to Christ in the Franciscan social, spiritual, and theological tradition. Whatever you can do is much appreciated, deeply appreciated. Pray. Come and visit Oceanside. We'll be glad to show you around and encourage us. Any support you can give is appreciated. If you'd like to learn more about the school, my executive director of advancement is outside. We'll be outside. We have little cards you can fill out. Otherwise, you have envelopes before you. Thank you very much. May God bless and keep you always. You're part of Pope Francis's message.